It's nice to have Michael with us today. I've known Michael for many years, and I'm just so delighted that he agreed to be with us today and give us a presentation. Many of you know Michael, but let me give you a little more formal introduction here if I could. Michael Aun, FIC, LUTCF, CSP, CPAE, serves as president of NAFA Florida's Central Florida chapter. He's a general agent with the Knights of Columbus in the Orlando area. Now, what you may not know about Michael is that he rose to international acclaim in 1978 as a motivational speaker when he won the World Championship of Public Speaking for Toastmasters International. Michael, that's quite an achievement. Since then, he's gone on to become an accomplished author, columnist, and insurance agent. As a writer, Mike's popular column, Behind the Mic, has been syndicated in some 60 newspapers and periodicals for over a quarter century. His sales training systems have been used by many Fortune 500 companies around the world. Michael, to me, this is amazing, has shared the lectern with Presidents Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, and George Bush, as well as speaking giants Tom Peters, Mark Russell, Tony Robbins, Art Linkletter, Paul Harvey, and Colin Powell. So today you're going to hear 13 customer service facts as presented in his latest book, It's the Customer, Stupid. So Michael, again, nice to have you with us today. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Tom. I appreciate you having me on today and sharing some ideas with you. You know, we've been through a lot in this past year, and I'm reminded of the great Italian philosopher Yogi Berra, when he said that the trouble with the future is it ain't what it used to be. This industry doesn't closely resemble what it used to be. And today we're going to draw some of those comparisons from back in my general agent days to, I'm what's called a district agent now. I'm kind of semi-retired, but still working, still active. We're going to cover some of those things. And interestingly, we're affected by a lot of things. If you were one of 1 million people in China, there'd be 1,300 people just like you. China will soon be the #1 English-speaking country in the world. All Chinese are taught English from the earliest days of their education. The 25% of India's population with the highest IQs is greater than the entire population of the United States of America. India has more honor students than the United States has students. What does this have to do? This has to do with everything, with the future. It's not what it used to be. The top 10 in-demand jobs in 2021 did not exist in 2004. Are you keeping up? We are creating jobs that don't exist. We are implementing things that don't exist yet, using technology that has yet to be invented to solve problems that we don't even have yet. Now, the questions that we need to raise, and by the way, I'm going to be moving so quickly, Tom's going to post this to where you can get the PDF handout of the entire presentation, so you can take notes. Love to see that, but we're going to make them available to you. But we're solving problems that haven't even existed yet. And these are the known unknowns. We know that because of a lot of the things that have happened, we're going to have unknowns in the future. Knowledge has a shelf life that is very short. Intellectual property has the shelf life of this banana, to be truthful. And today's college graduates will have 10 to 14 jobs before they're 38 years of age. There is no such thing as loyalty out there anymore. 1 in 4 workers have been with their current employers for less than a year. These are pre-COVID numbers. 1 in 2 in less than 5 years. My point to you is that we're in a constant state of change. 1 in 5 couples met online last year. MySpace, I don't even know that it exists anymore, but when it did exist, they had 200 million subscribers in their first year alone. That would have made MySpace the 5th largest country in the world, in between Indonesia and Brazil. Now, when we start looking at the world in this kind of a vision, it's different than the way it was. I like what Bill Belichick said about it. He said, I don't use Facebook or MySpace. Well, Bill, back in your day, and I know that's cute and humorous, and I know that a lot of people find it to be interesting, but the fact of the matter is, today, we've got, and I'm going to prove it to you today, we've got to keep up differently. broadband internet penetration. We think of ourselves as the leaders in this. Bermuda is #1 in the world. We're 19th on the list, for Pete's sakes. We're so far behind. Google had 2.7 billion hits in 2006. It's over 200 billion, and that's among almost as many platforms as you can name out there today where you can find information. People are finding ways around you and are finding ways around what we do, and they're going directly to the vendor to get what it is that they need. So who answered the questions BG before Google? Who took care of these things? The first text message, as best we can document it, was sent December 1, 1992, December of 1992. Before I'm done with this presentation today, in the next 24 hours, the text messages sent during that period of time will exceed the population of the entire planet many times over. We are in a different world, communicating differently. To reach an audience of 50 million, it took this device, the radio, 38 years. It took 13 years for the television to reach that number. It took 4 years for the internet. It took iPod 3 years. Facebook did it in 2 years, Twitter in less than 6 months, and TikTok did it in almost a month. The trouble with the future is it ain't what it used to be. We're in a different marketplace out there today. 1984, there were maybe 1,000 internet devices. 92, 1 million. Today's best estimate, over 2 trillion. The entire English language was 540,000 words back in the day. That's 5 times as many as in Shakespeare's day. That's 1 week's information in the New York Times, if you trust that document. Don't get political, Mike. Be nice, be nice. But it's equivalent to more information than someone born in the 18th century would have had in their lifetime. We have a wealth of data available at our fingertips. All we need to do is reach out, grab it, take advantage. All we need to do is learn. New technical data doubles every 2 years. You got a kid in, let's say, trade school, or say it's a 2-year nursing program. The stuff that they learned in year 1 could be obsolete by year 2. By 2023, computers will exceed the computation capabilities of the human brain. And by 2049, a $1,000, $1,500 computer, whatever it is I'm working with that the Home Office decided to send me, that computer will exceed the capabilities of the entire human species. In the time I'll spend with you today, 67 babies will be born in the United States, 274 in China, over 345 in India. The trouble with the future is it ain't what it used to be. So as we move into the things that are going to be about this program today, make no mistake, the economy does impact you now more than ever before in history. There are no borders. We are beyond borders. And when Craig and his previous administration came up with the concept of programs behind board, I credit whoever came up with that, but I thought it was wonderful. We need to start thinking beyond borders. We need to start thinking as the world is our marketplace. Now you have to be legitimate and licensed and all that stuff, but that's the news. This is the new competition that we face. So I'd ask you to ask yourself, are you a member of the Silver Spoon Club? You know, born with all the information you're ever going to need, all the money, all the good looks, or are you like me? I look like a refrigerator with a bowling ball on top. This is me at birth. No neck. I still don't have a neck. The good Monsignor kept the silver spoon here. I didn't get born with a silver spoon. These are my little twin grandsons. I also happen to have twin sons, but these twin grandsons are by my third son, Christopher. Now, I've nicknamed one of them Yogi because he looked like me that's me on the left, and this is Yogi Jr. on the right. I look more like him than his own twin brother looks like him. Now, Yogi Jr. and I'm Yogi Sr. Now, how did I get Yogi? By the way, I'll talk about that in a second. Here I am, number 3 out of the family of 11 children. Now, the baby, Andy, who is a South Carolina lawyer, his law offices all over South Carolina. He wasn't even born yet. And I keep telling him he was adopted. He was not born. I remember I was doing play-by-play for the high school back in those days on radio. I was donating my time and doing something. People thought he was my son because he was 18. He was still in high school, and I was doing play-by-play when I was 18 years old. So uh, anyway, I didn't sleep alone until I got married, but that's another issue. Here I am on my first sales call. Look at those white wall tires, would you? Here I am at First Holy Community. Kind of looks like a taxi cab with the doors open, doesn't it? My point to you today is all this stuff's a constant state of change. I played for my grandfather. My grandfather was an interesting man. I'm of Lebanese descent. I called him Jiddi, which is an Arabic word for grandfather. I played for his meat market. Yeah, he was the first person who taught me about customer service, and I learned a great deal from him. We were called the Max Meatheads. What else are you going to call a meat market? And we were playing Burley's Brunettes, the bar down the street that sponsored another Pee Wee team. So we were playing Burley's Bruisers in the World Series of Lexington. All 100 people in town showed up for this big game because in small towns, what you do is you close down on Wednesday afternoon and you go in there and you take advantage of being able to see what's going on in the community that day. So we always scheduled our Pee Wee games and Little League games on Wednesday afternoons. Made good sense, right? Now, my nickname was Yogi because I look like Yogi Berra. But I also look like this guy, Alfred E. Newman, on Mad Magazine, because back in those days I had a missing front tooth. Okay, so beware what you. I got stopped one time in the Atlanta airport. A guy comes up to me, he thought I was Burt Lance. I don't know if you remember this guy. He got some trouble or something. Anyway, they were interviewing me, and I took the interview in stride. I just started doing it back and forth. But today I want to talk about get back on track because I got one of these weird brains that goes off in different directions. Forgive me, if you will. We're going to talk about pizza parlors that deliver when and what they say they're going to deliver. Wait a minute, Mike. This is not a pizza audience. This is the insurance people that get it right. Well, Domino's used to make a pizza promise. And I did a lot of work with Domino's back in the 80s when Tom Monahan founded the company and he was developing the companies before he stepped away. But they made a promise. And the promise was very simple. If you don't like, you don't pay. If we don't deliver it within a certain time frame, which was 30 minutes in those days, they built their entire company on that promise. And the Domino's pizza promise was simple. If you don't like, you don't pay. They never argued about it. What did it cost Domino's? I asked Tom one time, I said, what could it cost each vendor each year to fulfill this promise that you've made? Now, by the way, the $70 million lawsuit that arrived will adjust your promises, okay? But they made this promise. So I said, what does it cost? He says, maybe about $200 per year per vendor, maybe. He said the story that 60 Minutes did on us was worth over $10 million in free advertising. I don't care. Mae West said this. I don't care what they say about me as long as they talk. What I'm trying to say to you today is you need to be increasing your awareness level. Jiddi, my grandfather, used to say, promise them a lot, but deliver a little bit more. And another comment that he would make all the time is always give them a baker's dozen. He ran a little grocery store. They come in there and they'd say, I want a dozen apples. We throw in an extra. We always knew that at least one might not be up to standard. So you deliver a baker's dozen. You give them a little extra. And Joel Weldon, a buddy of mine, a CSP, CPAE, Professional Speaker Hall of Fame member, says this. He says, find out what everybody else is doing, then don't do it. Do something different. Find out what they're up to, do something different. Now, a good question to ask is, do you deliver on your promises? Are you more interested in being liked or respected? What is it that drives you? A buddy of mine, Jeff Slutsky, wrote one of the 11 books I have with me, and it was the Toastmasters International Guide on Successful Speaking. And Jeff ran a company, Street Fighter Marketing. One of the things that we used to drive home, and we think it's very important, is to know your score. What are your numbers? Now, what I'm about to share with you is old information by design. I'm going to call it pre-COVID. I'm going to call it pre-social media. I'm going to call it pre-everything that you know today. And I went back and studied the numbers from my agency back when I was running an active agency with offices all Central Florida. How many pre-approach contacts did it take for them to reach their customer? How many phone calls did it take to get an appointment? How many appointments did it take for them to make a sale? And what is the value of every contact, whether you made a sale or not? Do you know what your numbers are? If you don't, you should. This could be devastating to you if you don't, because you don't know whether you're winning, losing. You don't know whether you're ahead, behind. You don't know where you stand. Now, these numbers don't mean a thing because they're pre-COVID, pre-social media numbers by design. We knew because we kept this score in our agency that it would take 100 pre-appointment approaches of some kind to reach people, to generate 41 contacts, to generate enough connections that would generate 14 visits, and we could close 26% of the sales. Now, that's the way we did it in the Knights of Columbus. Those numbers don't mean anything to anybody but us because those were our numbers at that time. But my point is simply this: you need to know what your numbers are. What are your numbers? How many? And those things are changing. Street fighters insist on knowing what their numbers are. They need to know where they stand. It's critically important. Street fighters want an advantage. We would do marketing pieces every single week. It was everything driven by marketing. Anniversary reports. We get as much as a 24.5% return on our direct mail by sending out an anniversary report and asking that the client send back to us what we called a 10-day questionnaire, where we would look it over. If there's any changes in there, they kept us up to date as they were going along. They got that report all the time. We would send quarterly shotgun marketing pieces. We get a 4.35% return on those. We know we kept score on those. We sent birthday cards, Thanksgiving cards, anniversary cards, holiday cards. The point I'm trying to make is this: it doesn't matter what you send. I was on a program years ago with Joe Girard, said to be the greatest automobile salesman in the world. Joe Girard made an interesting observation. He told me on that platform that day that he sends out every single month 13,000 postcards, not alike the kind that Tom sent out to us advertising this meeting, postcards. And his whole concept was, I figure I have their audience attention from the mailbox to his desk, wherever that might be. But the postcard did the trick because it got the message out there, and it made, he said, Mike, people send me change of address information. They want to keep getting my postcards. It doesn't matter what you send them. I said, well, Joe, what do you send them? January, Happy New Year. February, Happy Valentine's Day. March, I don't know what happens in March. Whatever, happy that day. April, Happy Irish Day. It doesn't make any difference what you say to them. You're staying in touch with them. Today's version of this is social media. Today's version doesn't require you to put a stamp on everything, but it does require those constant contacts. But that's the good news. Here comes the bad news. This arrived at my office yesterday afternoon at 4:21 from our compliance department, from Regulation Florida. The requirement is 32567. This is a procedure update regarding telephone solicitation. I'm going to take a moment and go through it with you. Effective July 1, 2021, the company, that's any company, is now prohibited from making the following types of phone calls, including calls made through automated dialing and recorded messages. A commercial telephone solicitation call before 8 a.m. or after 8 p.m. local time in that person's time zone, that is prohibited now. Greater than 3 commercial telephone solicitation calls from any number of people over a 24-hour period regarding the same subject matter is now prohibited. And this specifically applies regardless of the phone number that is used to make the call, specifically to bail bond agents and temporary bail bond agents. Now, we don't do any of that, so I don't know what that world is like. So I'm assuming that this decree maybe came down as a result of that, but that's not the point. The company, that's you and me, our companies, all companies, when making a commercial telephone solicitation call, is not permitted to use any technology purposefully displaying a different caller identification number than the number that is originating from its original identity. Violations, and here's the key, because we're all subject to this. Violations are misdemeanors of a second degree. The company and its affiliates, licensed insurance brokers, agents, customer service representatives, or solicitors licensed in any state when soliciting within the scope of his or her license. We all are subject to this now. So go to FLOIR.com, read up on it, because many of you represent many different companies. Now, I'm captive with the Knights of Columbus. I only have one to be responsible for. But this is critical information. As of July 1, it's now procedure. So how do you get around it? Well, I'm going back to my direct mail. I would take a piece of paper, and just for the heck of it, I would send it to somebody, soliciting something, and we'd send them a note or a card or whatever. And then I would crush it up like this, fold it back up, put a Post-it note on it that said 30 days later, I would mail the same thing back to them with a Post-it note. This is very important. Don't throw it out again. Now, what's this guy doing? Is he going through my garbage? What's he doing? No, you're trying to get their attention. Be creative when you do. If you're going to do mail, you got to, that was a follow-up piece. Now, that was 2 contacts. The first piece they got, the second piece he's scared to throw out now because I'm in his head. He don't want me digging through his trash again. Now, he doesn't know that, but look, you got to be creative with your approaches with people. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to cover 13 reasons with you why people choose to or not to do business with you. Fact number 1, dissatisfied customers tell an average of 10 other people about their bad experience. 12% are telling up to 20 people, and only 1 in 26 bother to complain. The rest say nothing. Now look at that fact, fix it in your mind, and look at fact number 2. Satisfied customers tell only 5 people about their positive experience. What did I just say to you? The bad news is traveling twice as fast as the good news. Fact number 3, it costs 5 to 10 times more money to attract a new customer than to keep an existing customer. And some people in their research say it could be as high as 15 to 20 times more money because we have to reach them differently now. We have to do it differently. Fact number 4, if 20 customers are dissatisfied with your service, 19 aren't going to bother to tell you, 14 will just simply take their business elsewhere. That's scary. You lost people and you didn't even know why you lost them. The late, great John Savage, who some of you old-timers knew, and I'm an old-timer, I'm a geezer, I'm turning 72 shortly, okay, so I'm the old buzzard in the group here. But I love what John Savage used to say. He said, trust in any relationship, once violated, negates the relationship. It takes a very forgiving person to come back for second helpings. They're just not going to do it. It's not in their makeup. It's not in their DNA. Fact number 5, 90% of dissatisfied customers will not buy from you again, and they won't bother to tell you why. I think I know the reason. You didn't stay in touch. You didn't reach out to them. We need to engage. And when I say engage, we need to engage properly. There are 5 keys to engagement. Number 1, this is absolutely critically important, is good fact finding. You have to know what's on your customer, your client's mind. And by the way, it's a lot easier to debate with a client than it is with a potential customer. So you want to make them a client as soon as you can. But good fact finding is how you serve them and knowing what else is on their plate and how else do they need to adjust. Secondly, you got to know the client. Know who they are, know their ethnic background. Different ethnic groups respond differently to different things. If you're dealing with in Central Florida, we hold our meetings at a restaurant in Winter Park, or have been holding them there. And the chef it's a French restaurant, but he is of Italian descent. Okay, you would deal with the Italians a lot differently than you would with the French. Okay, their customs are different. They're a little more deliberate. Speak their language. Know what's important to them. Know the things that they care about, and find out why. Why is an important word. Your kids do it to you all the time. When kids and grandkids, they drive you nuts with the words why. First of all, they learn the word no right away because we say it probably 300 times a day to a small child. No, no, don't do that. No, no, don't eat that. Don't put that in your mouth. No, no, no. So they know what no means. And they figured out how to get around no. And that's with why. Well, they'd come to me sometimes. Jiddi, the Arabic word for grandfather, when my grandson's coming, Jiddi, why is this way? Well, it's that way because I said it's that way. No, no, why? Go ask your grandmother. She knows everything, okay? I dump it, okay? But we need to know the why behind where they feel and how they feel. And then we have to understand the differences. What's important to us in our minds and in our knowledge base might not be as important to them. We need, where do they stand? And 5, absolutely critical. We need to be able to set up no fail return visits. We need to have a reason to get back in to see them, a compelling reason, a reason that they would pay you to come visit them for. Wrote an article, in fact, Tom has been good enough to run. I do a little motivational moments column, is what we call it in the Central Florida thing. And Tom runs these on the state NAFA website as well. Last month, the title of the article was, What's Your Sales Identity? How would your clients best describe you to a stranger? What would those clients that you've lost in the sales process have to say about why you lost them? Look at this article. I think it's still posted in this month's. Tom, is that correct? On your end, do you know whether it's still posted? Oh, you're muted, Tom.
Yeah, it is posted. Yep.
Take a look at the article because it does do some in-depth research into why people are the way they are. And we've got some other things coming up that are going to suggest even more information on why people do what they do. But understand the differences to be able to set up the no-fail return visit. Fact number 6, 96% of dissatisfied customers don't bother to complain about poor service. They figure, why bother? What is the use? The Washington-based think tank, TARP, the Technical Assistance Research Program, did a lot of research on this over the years. And over the years, they came up with basically 3 reasons why people don't bother to complain about poor service. First of all, it's just not worth their time. They can't get anybody on the phone. It's not worth it. Nobody answers their phones anymore. Nobody returns calls anymore. They can't, it's not worth, they go and post some negative thing online and that's their way of responding. They don't know. But fact number 2, you aren't listening. You aren't paying attention to their problem. They feel abandoned by that process. And number 3, you won't respond. And not responding is a response. Critically important that we know these differences and why people do what they do. You stick all that into the computer database, it comes back smelling like this. You'll do okay if you just handle the complaint. And the longer you wait to handle a complaint, the more it festers and the worse it gets. Tackle the dirty work first. Tackle the dirty work first. That should be first on your list every single day. The TARP study went on to say, when it comes to a customer changing from one vendor to another vendor, service, this is critical, was 5 times more important than any other singular factor. Service drove their decision. So how are you servicing your clients? How are you reaching out to them? How are you staying in touch with them? Everybody says price, 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 price. It's not about price. Price is a double-edged sword. It can drive traffic to you or it can eliminate you. And if you lead with price, you'll lose with price most times because somebody out there in this universe can beat your price. Well, then what's the magic? The magic is making you part of the package. And you can't do that by shoving your client's mouth over a fire hydrant, asking them to blindfold and ignore the stuff. It is critically important that they understand that they can reach you when they have problems concerning whatever it is that the issue might be. And we got to let the client win. You have to be wrong in order to let others be right. I've been married 47 years. I've learned this the hard way. Be wrong in order that she might be right. In many industries, fact number 7, including the life insurance industry and the financial services industry, the quality of the service that you render is one of the few variables that will distinguish you from the competition. Fact number 8, and one of our speakers early in the week, Delvin Joyce, actually spoke about it. He talked about making good first impressions. The first 30 seconds of a call or meeting sets the tone for the remainder of the contact. The last 30 seconds are critical to establishing lasting rapport. You only get one opportunity to make a first impression. You can't screw it up. What is your first impression? When Tom and I came on this morning, he says, Mike, you're all dressed up. This is my uniform. This is what I wear when I give speeches. I am a professional speaker, and this is what my attire looks like unless I'm told otherwise. I was told otherwise one time in Hawaii when a guy took out my tie and his scissors and he cut it in half. It made me angry because it was a $200 hand-painted tie. He said, this is casual, and I mean casual. And he made it casual for me. Don't learn things the hard way like I did in that case. But you only get one opportunity, so don't screw it up. Street fighters, they dress the part. They look the part. They know the part. So are you guilty of what you see in the mirror every morning? Is what you see what you get? I love what Flip Wilson 100 years ago said. What you see is what you get. Well, is what you get what they are expecting in their mind? Perception is never, ever neutral. What do you see in this picture? You'll either see a beautiful young woman or you'll see an older woman with a nose not a lot unlike mine, a big one, as they say. But perception is never neutral. Whatever you saw first might be the thing that you actually saw and what you think in your minds is there. Perception is never, ever neutral. Know that. It's important. If you're on trial today for being successful at whatever it is you do, whether you're a customer service representative, I don't care who or what you do, would there be enough evidence to convict you? Would there be enough to prove that you are who you say you are? Now, we Catholics have the doctrine right. When I was younger, I was a scoutmaster. And we Catholics have the doctrine right, and I know this doctrine because it's the doctrine of when you die and you go to heaven, you got to go through purgatory first. Purgatory is Cub Scouts, okay? Camping trips, that's purgatory. I love Cub Scouts, but my idea of no remote control on the television set is roughing it. That's roughing it to me. So Cub Scouts. Now, from day one, I had my kids, all 3 of them, on commission. We did not believe that people get a free ride. You didn't get allowances in our house. The allowances work like this. If there's food left over, you get to eat. If there's an empty bed, you get to sleep. That's just the way it works in our household. And I charge my children $228 a month to live in my home. Now, we did these charts to begin with. And every month I had to go through and do all the accounting. It was driving me crazy. And this is pre-Excel days. Okay, this is back in the 70s, guys. So give me a break here. And the charts were driving me nuts. And so we put them, actually printed one out, and this is how they got paid. They got $1 for everything. A big smack attack. That's where I lay all over them, kiss and slobber all over them. No battery. That's the kid's pacifier. When the little one, he was addicted to the pacifier. So if he gives up the battery for a day, he gets $1. Pet Ribsy. Ribsy was a dog. Feed Jaws. That's the goldfish. Feed the dogs. Go to bed happy. Get up happy. See how they could earn their $228 by simply doing their chores. All we did was quantify. Now they got an app for this stuff. I don't know what the app is, and don't ask me, okay? But there are ways of doing it. And I would go through this with the kids at the end of the month, and we would settle up. And it started driving me nuts. So I went down to the bank, and I got $1,001 bills. And I took them down to my printer. And I said, here, paint some glue on the edge. We're going to go with the pay-as-you-go system. I am not keeping up with these charts every month. This is driving me absolutely nuts. And I'm kind of like Walmart. Even if the theft is great, it makes no difference. I'm going to work the cost of the theft in with the cost of what I'm charging them here, so to speak. That's the way. Now, they came to me one month, died. That is a 2-syllable word in our house. One word, 2 syllables, died. We don't have enough money in the checking. They had checking accounts since they were 6 years old. We don't have enough money in the checking account to pay the bills this month. What are we going to do? I try to run my life as much like the real world as possible, so I introduced the concept of a loan. Dad, what's a loan? I said, well, a loan works like this. For every dollar you're short, I'm going to loan you $1 to make up the difference. I could see the twins elbowing one. We'll hit this sucker again next month. This loan thing is a good thing. I said, but I have to charge you interest. Died, one word, 2 syllables. What's interest? I said, well, interest works like this. For every dollar I loan you, you're going to pay me $2 back. 1%. Well, something like starts with a 1. Dad, you can't charge her. Now, here are my little innocent 8-year-old twin sons or 7-year-old twin sons who in the one breath don't know what a loan is, and in the next breath, they're experts on Florida's usury law. You can't charge rates like that. Who says I can't? It's my money. I'll charge what I want for it. Now, I also introduced them to another concept, collateral. Dad, what's collateral? Dad, what is collateral? Collateral is your bicycle. Now, you take a kid's wheels away from him, you put him out of business. I had to repossess a bicycle, put it on the front porch, for sale, cheap. A lady came up to me after a speech and she said, that's a heartless and a cruel lesson you're teaching those kids. I said, no, it's not. I said, that's real world. I'd rather they lose a 2-wheeler today than a 4-wheeler 20 years from now. What's wrong with you? That's real world. They learn the responsibility of taking care of money. That's what we should be sharing with our clients as well. They need to know the consequences of making bad decisions. And God knows we've all made enough over the years. Every one of us have. I mean, I used to weigh 350 pounds and I was addicted to food, period. I made bad decisions. So Corey would say to me, we had another deal with them too. If they got over $500 in their checking account, they then had to invest it. So Corey, who many of you know because he was in the business with me for a number of years, he's back into coaching now. But Corey, I'm his ball boy, so he's my boss now. But Corey came to me, he says, what's going to happen, Dad? I said, well, I'm going to confiscate any amount of money over 500. Well, first thing he did was went back and looked up what confiscate meant. He said, you're not taking my money. I said, well, then you have to find a way to invest it. So he comes to me with this proposal. He says, how about the stock market, Dad? Now, I don't know anything about the stock market. I did what everybody does. I got involved, I was smart enough to switch my 401k over to a Roth earlier because I knew I'd be having a bigger tax problem when I retired than when I was working. But I don't know much more about where to put investments, okay? But Corey comes to me and he says, Dad, how about Walmart? Now, Walmart in the 80s was a pretty darn good stock, and it did well, okay? But I had to ask the question of this 7-year-old, Corey, why Walmart? I wanted to really know. I said 2 reasons, Dad. Number 1, car department's always well stocked. Think like a 7-year-old. He sees toys. He's on this level. He's down here. And the parking lot's always full. Now I ask you, is perception not reality? Of course it's reality. Say this in your mind and keep this phrase in your head. All I want out of life is an unfair advantage. You should constantly be looking for the unfair advantage in your life. That unfair advantage is you. It's what you bring to the table. Fact number 9, the quality of the service that you render can save your business money, but not only is it going to make your customers happier, it's going to make the employees that work with you, for you, and around you happier. It's just critically important. Now, how do you motivate people? I've learned 3 things about motivation. I've learned, first of all, you can't motivate anybody to do anything they don't want to do. Motivation is an inside out, not an outside in job. I can't come here, bless you, and suddenly you walk away motivated. It does not work that way. Now, secondly, I've learned that all people are motivated. Wait a minute, Mike, you are really confusing me now. A moment ago, you said you can't motivate anyone. Now you're saying everybody, yeah, they're more motivated not to buy than they are to buy. You have not given them compelling entry, which was what this article was all about. What is your identity? What is your sales identity, if you will? You've got to give them a compelling reason why they would, in fact, pay you to show up at their office or their home to do business with them. You got to know what those compelling reasons are. You got to find out. You do that with good fact finding. The third thing I've learned is that people do things for their reasons, not for yours. They might not know that yours is the best solution just yet, but they are making their decisions for their reasons. Make them a client. Sell them what they want first, sell them what they need later. It's a lot easier to discuss with a client than it is to debate with a potential customer. That starts with these good open-ended questions. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. It drives me nuts when people go a did, can, should, can, may. Any question that can be answered with an or an is not a good question unless you have a follow-up question. And that follow-up question, why do you say that? Why is that important to you? What makes that child so important? I have a grandson who is autistic, brilliant child, just can't communicate. I have a special place in my heart for him and to work closely with him. But that would be a compelling reason for me to do something. The only way I'm going to find that kind of information out is to go deep in the fact-finding process. So did, would, could, should, may, those questions will generate a yes or a no answer. When you say who, what, when, where, why, or how, you're asking for more information. Always ask permission. Do you mind if I take notes? I'm always taking notes. Anytime I'm on any meeting, I take notes. I got notes from hundreds of meetings just this year already. And I select and I put information in that book that I want to retain. Now, the key to this whole process is when in trouble, ask questions. You have got to learn and demand of yourself to ask good questions of people, because all I want out of life is the unfair advantage. And the unfair advantage is to me knowing the answers to those questions. Don't be afraid to write it down. I carry a journal, not a lot like this one, for my daily activities, but I also carry it for meetings. It's a meetings journal where I can put my hands on that data and go back to an approximate date. Be sure and date your stuff when you enter it there so you'll know the date of the information. You'll be able to go back and point out what's in date, what's out of date, and update yourself from time to time. But Yogi said something else as well. Yogi Berra was a fountain of knowledge. He used to say, don't ask a wrong question. What's a wrong question? Addressing a wrong issue. Don't ask ask the right questions in the interview process. Because fact number 10, people are willing to pay more to receive better service. They demand and they will receive better service when you listen and when you deliver. Those are the keys to their process. They will pay more. What happens when you have a very low supply of something and a very high demand for that? Price goes up. How do they pay you? They pay you with your loyalty, their loyalty to you and to your company and to your institution and to the things that you are to them. And more than ever before, they have choices. They don't need us. They can go right around us and get anything they need if it weren't for the knowledge that we bring to the table. That's the key to this process. Fact number 11, 95% of dissatisfied customers will become loyal customers again if, big word if their complaints are handled well and quickly. You get on your knees tonight and you thank your maker that you've got problems to solve. Their complaints need to be handled. Be thankful that you've got a problem to solve. You are part of the solution, and that will drive things to them. I used to, back when I weighed close to 350, I used to be on an airplane 15, 20 times a month, getting back and forth to speaking engagements and, a flight out and a flight back. That's 2 flights, okay? And I was on this special kind of medication that I had to go in and get a glass of orange juice from someone in the airport. So I go up to the guy and I say, sir, I need a glass of orange juice. And I was very specific. Please, it needs to be just juice, no ice. I can't mix my medicine in. So what does he proceed to do? He proceeds to make the cup full of ice. He flavors it with a little bit of juice. And he comes back over to me and says, there you go, bub. Now, bub is a term to which I'm not normally interested in responding. Call me Bubba, but bub, no, I don't go there. I said, sir, I ordered this orange juice without ice. So he proceeds to go back across the room in front of me, strains my juice in between his fat fingers from one cup into the other cup, holding back the ice. And he comes back over to me and he says, he didn't even fill it up. Comes back over to me and he says, here you go, bub. And I took it, I threw it in his face and I said, there you go, bub. I say to you, people are going to stop taking it. They're going to start throwing the juice back in their faces. They're going to start doing the things. I'll give you some examples in a moment. But we need to find ways of turning these complaints into opportunities, turning the lemon into lemonade. The marketplace today is very unforgiving. Case in point, quest for beauty ends in misery and death. The story of Belle, this was in the Orlando Sentinel years ago. The story of Belle begins simply enough. A 60-year-old woman, her beauty fading beneath the sags and wrinkles, hopes to turn back the years with plastic surgery, but Belle's facelift left her tortured by pain, horrified at her new face, and infuriated at the man she blamed for her misery. After a year of suffering, she confronted her doctor in his office and shot him to death, went home and put the gun in her own mouth and killed herself. Now, you might call that the ultimate customer service response. But people are fed up. They're sick and tired. They're tired of being demoted to less important. So don't let difficult behavior build walls between you. Tear down the walls. Make the paradigm shift. You'll bump into the irate, the abusive customer. They're out there, the impatient, the demanding customer. They're all over the place. The timid, the non-communicative. These are the tough ones for me. The engineers and the CPAs. They just sit there looking like a boiled egg. They don't have any kind of expression on their faces. It's hard to read them. It's hard to know where they're going. The know-it-all, the non-listener, has got all the answers. And the fifth is the over-friendly customer. And when they start getting up on the same side of the desk with me and want to be friendly, I start paying better attention. Because see, fact number 12, a good sale is good service. The sale isn't over after the sale. The sale is just beginning at that point. So we want to deliver good service after the sale. Take this $6 haircut. Now, you can find places that will still do $6 haircuts. Now, how do the guys who charge $15 compete with the guys that charge $6? Well, they just hung their own sign. We fix $6 haircuts. You have to find a way to be deliberate out there in the marketplace to meet the people. Did a lot of work with Milliken and Company back in South Carolina. Milliken is the greatest company on the planet, in my opinion. And when I was doing things with Milliken, we were doing what were called POE programs, Pursuit of Excellence programs. Milliken requires out of every single employee 40 hours of continuing education a year. Now, they had something called an ECR program, Error Cause Removal. Big companies like to talk in acronyms, okay? And what they did was they enabled their middle managers to go around and reward people for coming up with good choices or good options. And they would get together with them and they would discuss the options and they would implement them on the spot. And they would give them cash to reward the people right there on the spot. Now, Milliken taught their people to think this way. They require 40 hours of continuing education out of every single employee every single year just to keep your job. Has nothing to do with promotion. That just has continued employment. Well, it worked so well for Milliken. I went to Roger Milliken. I said, look, let's do this for your customers. What do you mean? I said, well, the guys are buying into it. Let's teach the customer how to be a better customer. He said, what? I said, yeah, teach them how to bitch and moan, complain, how to come in. So Chrysler came in. We said, sit down, Chrysler. We're going to teach you how to be a customer. Huh? Yeah, we're going to teach you how to complain. Oh, we're good at that. Well, Chrysler was buying these reams of cloth that look like this thing I've recreated on the screen for you, which would ultimately, each of these little rectangles would become ultimately the bucket seat cover in an automobile, not unlike what you see on the screen now. But that left Chrysler with an interesting problem. Chrysler had to do away with the parts on the edge, the yellow that you see on the edge. What were they going to do with that? Well, that would save Chrysler 19 to 21% in labor costs, just getting it looking like the oval. Well, Milliken said, yeah, we got engineers. Those guys with big, thick glasses, slide rule in their pocket. Those guys will keep in the back. We got engineers. They can tool it up to do that. It's not a problem. But what was Milliken then going to do with all the floss in between the teeth? Milliken turned that into a $50 million a year rag industry simply by listening to the customer. Am I going too fast for you here? Now, this is the winner of the That's Not My Job award for the Department of Transportation in Arizona. They painted over the roadkill. Now, how stupid does one have to be to do something like this? Well, that's not my job. Well, make it their job. We got to empower the people around us to do the things that need to be done to deliver, because fact number 13, good service leads to increased sales. It's just that simple. The great Italian philosopher Yogi Berra said, 90% of this game is half mental. It should be second nature for your business to run on automatic pilot. If you're away, it should still be able to continue to run. I do tandem selling with other agents. I have a protege that I refer stuff to, and he's helping me on things. I'm helping him. He's helping me teach continuing education. Brian Lazuski, he helps me in our chapter, and I help him by referring different people to him. So it should be second nature to write thank you notes. It should be second nature to stay in touch with people. It should be second nature to visit them, and it doesn't have to be a physical visit. You can send them information. This is the power of social media, sending them relevant, updated data. And many of you will know infinitely more about social media than I will ever know. But this is your way of reaching out and making the customer yours for life. It's critically important. As I come up on the bewitching hour, I told Tom I would race through this because I wanted to get to the opportunity to answer any questions that anyone might have. But this part I'd like to close with what I call the customer service prayer. You know, we Catholics collect saints. Every now and then we get one we didn't like. We had this guy, St. Christopher. He was chugging along. He had attained what you might call sainthood tenure. And all of a sudden the Pope said, get him back in here. How do you recall a saint? They did. Even though they left St. Olga alone and she killed most of her enemies. But we got a saint that we kept. And it's what I call the prayer to St. Francis. It is that prayer. But it's the customer service prayer. And it says, make me an instrument of your peace. Well, what greater thing could you as a colleague be than an instrument of information and peace? Where there's hatred, let me sow love. Where there's injury, pardon. Where there's a problem, let me fix it. Let me be the guy that brings a solution. Where there's injury, pardon. Where there's doubt, faith. Where there's despair, hope. Isn't that what we do with the widows and the widowers when they're sitting there lost in their world because they've lost the person that they have marched through life with? Where there's despair, hope. Where there's darkness, light. Where there's sadness, joy. Prayer goes on to say, oh, divine master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we're pardoned. And it is in dying that we're born into eternal life. This is our job. We help fulfill people's dreams. Let's do it correctly. I'm open for questions. Tom?
Very good, Michael. What a great message. Thank you so much for that. Very entertaining, humorous, and certainly beneficial to what we do every single day. I do have one item for you that was sent in, Howard Rosenblatt made a comment. He says, consumers can get what they want or what they think they need, but that's not necessarily what they need, because either A, they don't know what they need, or B, cannot be objective about their own needs.
I can answer that best by referring you back to that column this month. What is your identity? What's your entry value? What is the value of your entree into that situation? And is it important for them to consider what you're bringing to the table? Look at this article that's on the NAFA website right now. It talks about all those calls that we used to have to make that now we're further burdened by this latest decree from Reg Ed that sent it down to us yesterday afternoon. So it's harder and harder to get people on the phone. It's harder and harder to make that. But once you're there, you got to be told. To me, file preparation, advanced preparation is absolutely the key. Know what you want to talk about when you go in there. Have at least some idea about what the client may have a need for, their age, their stage, whatever it is. You've got certain criteria that you work with, so work with it. But you're right, Howard. I mean, they can reach out in any number of directions and find what we have and do what we do elsewhere.
Very good. And a moment ago, I did post Michael's slide deck in a form of a PDF, so it is there for you. Feel free to download that and have it on hand. And thank you, Michael, for sharing that with us. It's nice to have that kind of a resource there where we can go back and revisit some of these issues at a later time. If you have any more questions, or if you have some responses or thoughts, we'd be glad to take them now in the chat feature. Lots of favorable comments, Michael. Terry says, you knocked it out of the park as always. Brian says, thanks, Michael, always fun and helpful. Kelly says, great job, Michael. Thanks for sharing your wisdom and humor. By the way, there's a lot of comments about the haircuts. So apparently some of our people need haircuts fixed. But
I'm trying to keep up, guys. I'm just trying to keep. I'm just thankful I got a little up there left to cover.
Yeah. Michael, you have been a long-time NAFA member for years and years and years, and we just appreciate it. You are one of our treasures here at NAFA Florida, and it's so nice to have you with us. I remember several years ago, we had you on main platform at our NAFA Florida conference. About the time I came on board in 1994, we're going to have to talk about getting you back up there. So it'd be nice to have you do that. All right, I'm looking for more questions. Any more comments? I did also post in the chat that there's information. If you're not a member of NAFA Florida, we would love to have you be a member of NAFA Florida, NAFA, and the information is in there in the chat about how to go about doing that. If you're thinking about it later, give me a call or send me an email here at NAFA Florida in Tallahassee, and we'll be glad to discuss membership with you at that time. It's a great association. The work that we do for our members is just awesome. Craig talked a little bit about that before in his opening comments. I won't go through that again, but and we're family too. And I think you kind of heard that in Michael's presentation. We are family. Many of us have known each other for years and years, have been mentors to each other. We socialize, we network, and we'd love to have you join the family. So think about joining NAFA Florida, and I guarantee you, you won't be sorry. So, all right. I don't see any more questions. Michael, thank you so much for your time today for doing that. And Mr. President, I'm going to turn it back over to you for some final words as we close out our 2001 Financial Advisor Sales Symposium. Craig, you're muted. Craig, you're muted.
Okay, here we go. We'll try that again. I'll try to bring us in for a landing here. Thank you, Michael. Again, it's always great to hear you speak and remind us that it's all about the customer, and we appreciate those words of wisdom. And thank you, Tom, for all the work that you have put in this week and helping put this thing together and make it happen. And thanks again to Robert Rosenthal for his support that he's so generously done for all these years. And thank you, members, for joining us. And I hope this has been an enjoyable week for you. And we'll look forward to next year when we get together in person at the reunion and have a chance to do what we do best, So thanks everybody and have a great weekend.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye now.